Okay, can everybody hear me okay? No feedback? If I can just get a thumbs up, I know we're doing okay. Great, thank you. It's so wonderful to be here with you today. I see some old friends online and many new ones. So you're probably not familiar with my style of teaching, and it may be a little bit different. First of all, we're not going to meditate at the beginning of the session so that there is some directed intention at our during our time of meditation. I'd like to give the Dharma first, and then we will have something to meditate on. I'm going to open with just reiterating our topic for today, not just to share it with you, but to remind me. The way that I get an inspiration is I put in mind beings that I may or may not know, and what is it that they need to know, or what is it that they can benefit from. There were two.
Oh, yeah. I'm first.
Okay. All right. So I'd like to read our topic for today, and then I'll jump right in, because I usually ask, what is it that those within the hearing of my voice, what could they benefit from? And since I don't know what that is, I have to get into a space of don't know mind. And then I trust the wisdom that's forever pervasive throughout the universe to direct some inspiration and aspiration towards me. So you and I are going through this sort of at the same time, and that way you can kind of rest assured it's not something that Pannavati wants to impart to you, and I can kind of rest unassured, assured that it's not something coming from my own mind, something I want to tell you or teach you, and in that way we can just enjoy the natural arising or the aroma of wisdom that pervades and elevates both of us. So my topic for today is worldly Dharma is Buddha Dharma, or all Buddha Dharma is worldly Dharma. Nowadays, many Buddhist practitioners have mistaken views. Taking the false to be true, we can make some progress, but we can't make much. Only in the light of wisdom can we awaken to the truth, because it allows us to penetrate avidya, the karmic hindrance of non-understanding that is complicating our lives. So that's this discussion today. The Buddha gave 84,000 teachings, and that's just like a big number, especially in 500 BC. That's just a really big number that says that for every type of suffering, there is a cure. For every type of pain, there is a salve. For every misunderstanding, there is a path that leads to clarity. And you have to take the right one. If I have a cut, then I don't want an ointment I don't want a burn ointment. If I have a burn, I don't want maybe alcohol or something to pour on it that you would use to clean out a cut. We have to apply the right medicine for the right ailment. And every one of us is working with something, dealing with something that's what creates samsara. And that's what creates this space that we are currently in. So a lot of times people say, well, what is my purpose? Why am I here? And what's my mission? What should I be doing in life? And maybe that's not exactly the right question or the most useful question we can ask. I could say that I'm here if I'm following the Buddhist principles. I could say that I'm here due to causes and conditions. Now, while I'm here, what shall I do with myself? And if we approach it from this perspective, we can have a better understanding of how to walk through life in such a way that we produce a certain kind of happiness and peace and transformation that allows us to end the cycle of birth and death in samsara. We talk about awareness, but we talk about awareness from a purely this life materialized being perspective. And that's not really what the Buddha was talking about. That is one aspect of it, but we have to go a lot further than that if we want to actually get off the wheel of conditioned existence and move from this space of coming and going and birth and death to the realm or the state of no birth and no death. And that is the end goal. You know, when you're playing a game, and a game is a game, so you do it even to have fun. Even doing something to have fun, there is an end goal in mind. So if I'm playing football, I don't just get out there with football kicking and running in any direction. I have to go towards the right goal post, you know, and I have to work with the right group, which would be my team. You can call it the yellow team versus the purple team. And so if you don't do some of these preliminary things, then you're just going to be out on the field and you wind up any place. And there is a definite goal. So we say don't worry about an end goal, but we should have a goal. If you're traveling from one place to another, a map is useful. You can look at the map and say, I am here, and that's where I'm going. And just having that as a basis allows one to turn or move in that direction. Now, once we start moving in that direction, there's signposts all along the way that we're looking for. And this is what sutras or suttas do for us. They provide the signposts. They're saying you're heading in the right direction towards your goal, or they're saying make a U-turn, or you vectored off, get back on the path. And that's useful to us. So it starts with things that we abandon things. Why? Because they're just not useful for us. They're not beneficial for us. They're not helpful to us. They are also not useful to others. They're not beneficial to others. They're not helpful to others. And so we start from a place of confusion and a place of not knowing what life is all about, the meaning of life even. And we get some direction of, if you want to know that, if you want to really know the meaning of life, and if you want to enjoy the marvelousness of life, there are a few things that you're going to have to step away from in order to be able to see more perfectly. And so that's where the teachings come in about things that we should abandon because they produce unhappy states, mental states and physical states, and they take us away from our goal. And so after a while, we already know what things to abandon, but it's not just a matter of mentally knowing what things to abandon. It's about actually taking up actions of abandonment. We must put into practice, and we call that cultivating. Cultivating off the pillow. On the pillow is great. Nobody's bothering you when you're looking inside yourself. But when you are confronted with the vicissitudes of life, the things in the world, the people in the world, then there is a certain type of practice that needs to be done. And that's where all the efficacy needs to be placed so that when one sits on the cushion, our hearts and minds are clear. When one sits on the cushion, you know, they can drop into that space of non-differentiation. They can drop into that space where there's no offense. They can drop into that space where there is nothing tying them and tethering them to the ordinary external world. And so when we're doing practices, they necessarily must take place off the pillow so that when we are sitting, when we are recollecting, only to enter into a place of absolute rest, and that would be what dhyana is, and long-term, what samadhi would be, resting in an undifferentiated mind. You find that the mind is not inside, it's not outside, it doesn't land anywhere, then one has a certain freedom. But as long as the mind lands somewhere, the mind then becomes attached to that thing. And it's called object states. Object states. Your mind is attached to something that you see or you hear or you taste or you touch or you smell or you think. And at that time, it's that attachment that makes this ordinary world appear to you as the world, the ultimate world. And so we think about what things go on in this daily life as if that's all that really matters. Now, we know that we're all going to die at some time. At some point, death becomes us all. But we don't think it's going to happen right now. You know, I can be really sick and terminal, but I still don't think I'm going to die in the next minute. And so we have this notion of this death being a far off thing. But if I knew that my next third breath was the last one, I knew that for a fact, that it was the last one, then my mind would be focused in a different way. Well, first of all, I'll be trying to prolong those breaths, probably, you know, but I would also have a mind that was not based on what's happening here, because I would be thinking about what happens after that third breath. And the Buddha says that in order for us to enter into this sphere or the minds of the Buddhas, we have to have that sense of urgency that truly the next breath could be my last breath. And when it does, I begin to have a renunciation for this world and the things of this world, even the cares of this world. Someone gave a story in our Dharma session this morning, and she was talking about at the hospital, they gave the wrong diagnosis to a person. They told her she was terminal. And they were really felt like have to deliver this horrible news. They didn't know how to comfort her. And they went out and they had a powwow and they came up with some things, and they went back to talk to her again, but she had left her hospital bed. She had left the hospital. So they're searching all over trying to find her, because they've given a terminal diagnosis to this person, and they need to correct that. After a while, she comes back to the hospital and she says, okay, I'm ready now. She says, I quit that job that I hated. You know, I'm not planning to go back to it. She said, and that boyfriend that was not good to me, I got rid of him too. And she went through her tick list of all the things that she abandoned, because now she was done with that. And then they said, oh, we gave you the wrong diagnosis. You're not dying, at least right now, you're not dying. And she said, well, and I gave up my job, that good job I had. I gave up my boyfriend. Now, a few minutes ago, there were things that caused her suffering when she put them alongside of what really ultimately matters. But now that that's not happening right now, then she's back to all of these things. And we're very much like that as we go through life on a daily basis. So the Dharma is given to us in order that we can complete our partial views of reality and of life and enter into the totality of it, the total perspective of it. And he starts by saying, although it's hard to understand, that there in the beginning, or what comes before any appearance, whether it be a worldly phenomena, insentient thing, or what even comes before sentience, there is this state of primordial emptiness. And so when we're trying to work on non-self, Pannavati, uprooting a sense of a personal self, or, that's going to be difficult to do, because the absolute truth of that is that it's not Pannavati trying to get to her state of emptiness, her original nature, her original intrinsic nature of emptiness, is that first there was the primordial emptiness, of which I'm a little partial expression of. So as we keep backtracking, at some point, any notion of ourselves as a primary cause falls away completely. And when that occurs, one enters spontaneously into a certain state. It's a certain state based upon that realization. So a realization is one thing, a teaching is another. teachings are good, but they're only good up to a point. What is required to really know is a realization. And so a realization is above or supersedes, we could say, what the ordinary mind can rationalize, what the ordinary mind can come up with, what the ordinary mind even has the capacity to understand. And so when we're sitting in meditation, we're saying part of our goal is to just drop off this critical thinking mind. Part of our goal is to settle into this space of quietude, this space of vastness, this space of emptiness. We've got all the right words, all the right jargon. But when we're really asked to or challenged to put that into practice off the pillar, it's, oh no, I need my thinking mind. How do I know how to do this? How do I know how to do that? How do I know how to hold this? How do I know how to think that? And we cannot trust the Dharma to that point. We only can trust it to a certain point, the point where it still fits within the configuration of the thoughts and the structures of appearances that come out of our ordinary mind. And so we live ordinary lives, we practice ordinary Dharma, and it becomes a great doctrine, a great teaching, something to help us be happier with our things, even something that can go a little further than that and inspire us to consider others as ourselves and do meaningful and things for them and to practice goodness in the world. But it wasn't for that. It was for overcoming life and death. And so, if we set a goal, and let's say that the standard of the bar is here, but if that's too difficult or it's going to take too much of my time to investigate that, or that's too many things I have to give up or think about, and we lower the bar to here, then we might be able to easily do our chin-ups. We can easily do our chin-ups. But what if we left the standard where it was? And then we were able to come up to the fullness of the measure of the stature of that standard. So the Buddha and all of the Buddhists in the 10 directions are our standard. So what can happen is that a counterfeit Dharma can seep into our consciousness. A counterfeit Dharma is one that sounds good, but it's like the chin-up Dharma. We don't have to go so deep. It's not requiring too much of it. I can make this one. But my exhortation to you today is to leave the standard as the standard. And you would be amazed at the human capacity to transform into a holy being. And I'll tell you, use the word holy there. If the word holy offends you because it sounds religious, just think of holy as whole. And to come up into the highest level, the highest state that we can, using the wisdom and the compassion of the Buddha as our model. As our standard, as our aspiration, so that we can think, oh, well, the Buddha did that, but I'm only human. And so there is a practice that we can undertake when we are willing, and the willingness is so important. Most of us could make enormous progress in our accomplishment. And I know accomplishment is a kind of strange word in today's Buddhism, because we don't talk that much about accomplishment. Accomplishment means manifesting and showing forth the efficacy of those things that you hold to be true. We think of accomplishment maybe in a very ordinary way, but if it's in an ordinary way, then we don't need it. We have enough ordinary things. If it's common, we don't need it. We have enough common sense. I'm looking for that which is extraordinary, that lifts us up and above our ordinary capacities to think. And that requires an encounter with prajna. So a lot of times prajna is defined as wisdom, and this is a lot to talk about in 30 minutes, I'm going to tell you. But I'm doing my best in 30 minutes with however many people are on, 104 people with 104 different minds, some high minds, some low minds, some invested minds, some casual minds, some with little understanding, some with great understanding, and yet trying to say something that can speak to each one of those minds. It's not an easy thing to do, and certainly in 30 minutes to lay a foundation is virtually impossible. But that's okay, because every time the Buddha speaks, he's imparting something in a way that it can strike you at whatever level you are on. It can it's like a scatter gunshot. What do you call that? That rifle has scatter pellets in it, so you can like just pull the trigger, and instead of one bullet, it's like buckshot, and it goes all over the place. The truth of prajna has that kind of capacity that it can ding or it can touch each one at their point of inquiry, and lay a foundation for understanding that can cause the structure of appearances to shift for you, you know, but in that process, there will be some things you have to lay aside because that's not for you. And there's some things that you have to take up and have the willingness to put into actual practice off the pillow, because you're recognizing you cannot go further just thinking goodness. There's actual goodness that has to be undertaken. So there is something that we as practitioners, and I used to use the word practitioners, that's the word we're most familiar with, and I don't use it anymore. I use the word cultivators, because, you know, practice is practice. And at some point, you know, you'd like to get out into a real game. And for a lot of us, our whole life is spent with the mindset of being a practitioner, as opposed to one who's in the first, what do you call it, first string, first line, who actually gets out and goes onto the field and attempts to win the game, to really seize the essence of this precious human life, and to come up to the fullness of the measure of the stature of our model, which is the Samyak Buddha, you know. And so as we are stepping into this, we can begin to know that there's some things we have to shift our determination towards. I can be walking down the street and I can be thinking how I love everybody. You know, I don't have any art against anybody. I love all people. May all people be well and happy. May they be blessed and all of that. And then this person comes up the street and he's looking a little scraggly. Actually, my mind goes beep, 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 alarm, alarm. He's smelly, he's dirty. And I may take 2 steps to the left, 2 steps to the left, so that when we pass each other, we not go past so closely, you know. Or when I get right up on him, I'm watching him now, but when we get really close, I'm not looking at him. I'm going to look straight ahead. But yet, in my heart and in my mind, I love everybody. I'm, you know, me and others, they're one. And that's where we have to put forth our effort in that very moment. Is that the mind of the model? Is that the mind of the Buddha? Or is that the Buddhic kind of mind, the awakened kind of mind that sees self and others are equal, or even putting others before self? And so we have to erase this dichotomy. That's where the duality lies. It is the difference between our thoughts and our intentions and our actual actions. All of us, I think, to even be a Buddhist practitioner or to be a Buddhist cultivator, we have to have some level of goodness already operating, manifesting, bringing forth fruit into our life, or you wouldn't even have an interest in this. But then once we have an interest in it, there is there is the shift that has to occur in how we actually walk out our life. And that requires more than just thinking good thoughts about everybody. So we want to go and save feed the hungry children in Biafra. We want to go and save this. We want to go and do all of that. But what are you actually doing just in your ordinary everyday life? Because the way that mind thinks and leans and inclines, that's going to be the way your mind ultimately goes. And so in these ways that we make little incremental improvements in the way we walk out every hour, every moment of our lives determines who we really are, whether we're aspiring truly to the model of the awakened mind, and whether it's possible to actually accomplish it. I don't think anybody thinks it's possible to become a Buddha, but that's what Buddhas come here for. They come here to show us how we can transform from what we are or perceive ourselves to be as to what we actually can be, and gives us the knowing that we truly have the capacity to save living beings. And so they start telling us what things we have to abandon or lay aside, what ways we think that are not beneficial to the goal. Then we have to start putting those into practice. But somewhere along the line, then they start to tell us what things we have to take up. So you think it's hard to lay down some things, it's even harder to take up some things. For instance, it talks about being able to overlook a slight and tolerate a fault. That means being able to be able to work with being disrespected or misunderstood with and maintain a certain dignity and non-attachment to that view that the other held of us and imputed upon us. You know, you can call me macaroni. If I'm not macaroni, then I'm not offended. You can replace that with any other name or title or label that you want. You know, so it's one knowing who they are in the world and how to walk in that. Who knows whether in the way that you carry yourself you might become the model. You might become the Buddhic model for someone, and they can change based on how you have carried yourself when you were being maligned, when your character was being maligned, when you were being talked about behind your back, when you were being disrespected, when you were not being appreciated. How did you carry yourself? What was your modeling for them? And when we say we love, that's what love does. Love is long-suffering. Love is kind. Love is not arrogant and proud. Love is not puffed up. Love thinks no evil. Love does not harm. And so it takes an extreme amount of wisdom to learn how to live in samsara, how to live in this world, you know, having to work with massage and help shift the mindset and the understanding of people who would do harm and who do harm. It takes a great deal of wisdom, but it can't be employed apart from the state that you're actually in. So if I don't know how to handle my own anger, there's nothing I can do in helping people with their anger. If I don't know how to neutralize and uproot my sense of pain or shame or grief, there's nothing I can do. I can commiserate with others, like I know been there. I had somebody I loved that died, you know, so when you're in your grief, I can understand your grief, but I cannot be model for you how to stand with a certain endurance and faith in what you say you hold fast to and believe, so that at that time, their being in your presence, you have a way to sustain, hold them, and lift them up out of their malady as they go through their transformations and their acceptance of. And when I say acceptance, I don't mean acceptance in the ordinary sense. You know, language is language lacks substantially in exemplifying the truth of anything. You know, I can say, I can talk to you about my love for something, but you wouldn't know what that is. You only hear my words about it, and you decide what that is according to your definition of love. You decide what that is. I can try to express it to you, but you're not feeling what I'm feeling. You're not knowing what I'm knowing because you're not experiencing exactly what I am experiencing. And so we have to see the limitation of words, but yet we have to use words because words are like the bridge or the transport that carry us towards an experience, towards a direct experience of something, towards a living experience. But if we get caught up in the words, then we're gonna miss it because the words are not the thing. The words are just concepts trying to describe the experience. And so we have to actually thank you. So we have to actually see words only as a vehicle pointing towards something. And that's why the Buddha gave so many analogies and used allegories and so forth. He said, it's like this, it's like that, it's like this, it's like that. Because then you can kind of tie it more into your experience. You know, I'm looking for the time. I'm looking for the time. It's now. Oh, okay. I'm not high tech. I'm so sorry. But this is how we move forward in the depth of our practice, is that taking everything that's said and figuring out a way of how do I actually walk that out, and how do I walk it out when? Not when I think about it an hour from now, but in this very moment. What is the model? What mind should I take up to, and then I do that. Now, practice that a few times, and it's no longer practice. It becomes cultivation. It becomes something that you are taking upon yourself for it to become your own virtue, your own wisdom, your own truth that you have walked out step by step. So you can say that when challenges come into our life, that if we saw them not as challenges, but we saw them as an opportunity to move into the direct experience of overcoming that leads to accomplishment, then maybe we could handle them in a little different way. And life begins to take on a different meaning for us. And what made us sad before or angry before will now give us a sense of gladness. If I'm wrong, I'd like somebody to tell me. Today, in our earlier Sangha, they're telling me, you know, my Dharma talks are an hour and a half, and then we go into meditation. So we build up something, and then we rest. And so a 30-minute one is very difficult, very difficult for me. But earlier today, someone had brought a cup of tea into the room, and they set it on the wool carpeting. And I asked them, would they mind? It's okay to have tea, but you just can't have it right there because if it spills, it's very difficult to clean in the wool carpeting. And he said, thank you for reminding me about that. Now, we never told him that, but his mindset, his attitude was, thank you for reminding me about that. I'll move that right away, and I'll remember that in the future. Instead of like, I'm grown, who are you to tell me what to do and how to do it? Did you have to out me in front of people? All of those things, that resistance was not there. And it was so beautiful, you know, And that's the attitude we should have when we are confronted with something that challenges us in our level of growth. If we could see that, oh, thank you for reminding me about that. Cultivating an attitude of openness, a willingness to go through a challenging moment to find the victory that's on the other side of that, that allows me to be stable regardless of circumstances, regardless of what's going on. And when that happens, you know you're on a trajectory that you just got put into the first string. You just got put into the game, and you're no longer just practicing with the guys, you know, at what do you call it? They don't call it rehearsal. When you practice. Yeah, they call it practice, like when you go to football practice. And so now you know that you're being invited because of your willingness, because of your interest, because you see a model that's worthy of respect, and because you desire to emulate that, and because you want that wisdom and the compassion to actually be your own. And so then you enter into a whole new state. See, it's about the state we can actually get into. So some of us want to be in a certain construct, but we're not in the state to be able to understand and accomplish that principle. But when we do this, what seems to be in the beginning, the hard work, you know, of truly allowing the Dharma to be our guide, and going through the difficulties when things aren't the way we want them to be, or somebody's not doing what we want them to do, or what we think in all of our wisdom is the right thing to do. You know, if one could think, well, maybe in their wisdom, that is the right thing for them. And the same way that I would like to flow freely in my wisdom of what I think is right, so would they. That creates a different kind of spacious awareness by which something can shift and something can change. You know, and sometimes we have to have enough patience for that to be nurtured until it can get to the place that it can change. But as that happens, one starts to feel the confidence that comes with really taking up a more than ordinary practice of cultivation. And one begins to gain confidence both in the Dharma and in themselves. One begins to develop as they go through this and see the progress, and they see the joy that co-arises with these right actions. One begins to have greater and greater respect for the one who shared those practices with them. And one's whole life begins to change, or the structure of appearances shift. And maybe actually nothing has changed, but you have transformed. So I think I have to, that I can talk, or no, I got to stop and meditate. Okay, so I want to stop right now then, and we can go into a meditation. And as we do that, I want to play a song that some of my Dharmacharyas, we had a retreat, and our retreats are not all sitting retreats, and but we cultivate vidyas. So vidya would be the opposite of avidyas. And when I talked in the beginning about this talk, it was about avidyas, and that is non-understanding that has existed since beginningless time, which is what makes it so difficult for us to make some changes. The good I would do, I don't do. What I don't want to do, I do. What is the reason for that? And that is the avidya, or we call it ignorance. But what does ignorance mean? You know, in the links of dependent origination starts with ignorance. What is that? That's the non-understanding, the state of non-understanding. But there is a path that leads us from the state of non-understanding to the state of prajna, which is the primordial wisdom that is available to all sentient beings. And so we take a time when we go into our meditation to just rest, not trying to do anything, just trying to get out of a discriminating mind that's thinking about this or that. Let's say that we're making a shake and we've just now put in different ingredients into that shake, and we're shaking it up, 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 and now we're just going to sit and let it settle. Now we're not going to be thinking about those things we just heard. When we're sitting in meditation, we're not thinking about it. It's in there because we've put it in there. But we're not going to use the mind that doesn't know to try to figure out what that is. We're going to allow that we have put in to settle upon the mind that does not know, to give it understanding, illuminance. And so prajna is not something actually that we develop. Prajna is something that we encounter in our surrender. And when it lights upon us, it gives us clarity. And so this is the song that they wrote, and we'll go right into our meditation then. But let this song guide you in.
Walking in this Dharma stream, I believe in you, I believe in me. Waking up from this dream, I believe in you, I believe in me. Give me a way to breathe. Give me a way to love. Give me a way to live. No more feeding the illusion of a solid separate me. Bodhisattva's guided my way, and I see things differently. Oh, give me a way to breathe. Give me a way to love. Give me a way to live. Ooh. Sitting even in the midst of the uneven, resting with the don't know mind, reflecting truth that time is short now. No more blocking out the wisdom, it's been right here all the time. Knowing the way to breathe. Knowing the way to love. Knowing the way to live.
Think of this moment as the sunset. The ground has been cultivated and seeds have been planted. The ground has been sprinkled with water and there is nothing else to do. As the sixth patriarch said, do not ponder, do not question, do not conceptualize. Enter into that space of just a non-differentiation. Because as you walk through your daily life, that's when you will be sprinkling this ground and something will sprout. Of course, if you don't sprinkle the ground, perhaps even what has sprouted will die. So our cultivation and having the mind of a cultivator is so important. But we do that off the pillow. And when we come to the pillow, we simply abide. So I was ringing the bell, but for some reason, I honestly was. Here it is. I tell you the truth. But for some reason, it's not going, the sound was not picking up on the mic. Hmm. Okay. So I want to just open up the next 15 minutes. If there are any questions or anything anyone would like to even share, you can just feel free at this time.
Hi, Venerable. There's a question in the chat. I'll read it out to you from Joanna. How do you apply this to, we don't know what this is though. How do you apply this to microaggressions to minorities? Skillful responses. Joanna, if you would like to maybe come put on your.
I understand. I understand.
Right. Perfect. Great.
So in this world, there's always going to be misunderstandings. The Buddha said there are 4 kinds of worlds. There's the world where people, beings have same body, same mind. There's the worlds where beings have different bodies, same mind. There are worlds where beings have different bodies, different minds. And there are worlds where beings have same mind, different body, different mind. Which one did I leave out? Same body, same mind, different body, different mind, same body, different mind, same mind, different bodies. And he said, what world is this? The human world, where we have different bodies and different minds. How do you expect them all to agree? And so we can recognize the great challenge then when we're in a world where people see the world through the partial experiences that they have, and they come up with different conclusions, maybe through the ways that they were indoctrinated when they were young. It could be just the karma that's ripening from a previous lifetime that's in the mind stream, in the seventh consciousness that has been watered by something unwholesome here, and so something unwholesome has sprouted up. And so we have to recognize that that is in this world. There were many times that the Buddha was offended, and he said, what you said was meant for offense. But my vow of harmlessness and help to you is to share this. And he would give them a response in a way that many times it shifted and changed their view because of the power of a vow that he had and the capacity and the development and cultivation to attain it, that he could actually walk it out. So if we want to get better at working with these kinds of unwholesome minds, we have to work at getting better with our own unwholesome mind. I truly believe there was a time that I was very, very, very active in movements against aggressions towards all kinds, towards poor people, towards Black people, people of color, towards, you can pick a cause, But what I recognized is that many times the skillfulness to uproot and eradicate the matter, it requires an ability to change minds and to change hearts. And that if I didn't have that, I was not going to do a lot of good. Actually, I was going to make some things even worse. And so I felt that the best way for me to move forward was to begin to cultivate and work on my own heart and mind. If I am a light bulb connected to electricity, when you turn that switch, I will come up and on and I will brighten the room. And so I really judge a confrontation or an issue now according to how well I have done and what I can do. There's one of the principles of the Dharma is your faults are my faults. You know, so when I look at it, I have pity for the one who doesn't have a right understanding, because I understand the karmic result of that. That's the first thing. So am I going after this because I want him to be respectful of me, to say the right thing or do the right thing for a person, or do I do it with a deep humility and an actual appreciation for the depth of his ignorance? And do I want him to be free and liberated from that ignorance and to come out? So what is my motivation in this? So these are all the deep ways that we have to look at ourselves and understanding in order to be part of a solution to a problem. Now, that doesn't answer the out there question, you know, but what it does ask of us is to ask the in here question, because this world is only the outpicturing of what's in the hearts and minds of all the inhabitants in this world. And so if each one could change one, then the world would be a good place, you know.
I think I just have a quick thing. With all the anti-Asian hate that came about, I got somewhat involved because of the random acts of violence. So primarily, at some point, you have to hold people accountable for their words and their actions. And I also found out that Asians, allegedly the model minority, was not actually models, referred to all the Japanese that were so subservient when they came out of internment. So initially I've said to myself, well, they're suffering, I'm not gonna let the second arrow get to me. But at some point I feel like I have to speak up skillfully, and I always am able to come up with something after the fact, because I don't want to be like, what the heck? You know, how did this come about? But so when you talk to that person about his tea, that was what I was thinking. Because at some point I said to this person, I'll take that as a compliment, thank you. And that kind of floored them, because obviously it was not meant as a compliment. But I didn't feel like that was genuine, because what I really wanted to say, I wasn't able to articulate.
So the thing is that when you are able to articulate, when the skillfulness is there, you will be able to articulate that. It is a great mark of awareness to recognize where one is, because most of us think we're someplace that we're not, and the proof is in the pudding. But where I think we're on the same page, because I'm not talking about not holding people accountable. You know, we really do have to hold people accountable. I'm a Black person living in America, you know, so I have no illusions about anything. But the only one that one can really control is oneself, and continuing to work towards that path of having the full understanding that brings forth the power of true compassion. You know, then that is what allows one to get better and better. There will be the time that you'll be able to speak up, and you can speak up without there being any sense of anger or hatred in your mind, or even fear of what, you know, they might do because of what you say, because you have now entered into what was an aspirational state. You've now entered into the state, and that has its own position of power, is what I'm saying. That and it has its own integrity, and it has when I say it has its own protection, I'm not speaking from the outer sense of protection, but I'm speaking from the inner sense of protection of someone walking in their ultimate truth, you know. And so these things are very, very individual. But if we are developed along the way, more than to just get a picket sign and go out there, and then somebody hits you with their sign, could be on purpose, could be by accident. Next thing you know, you got your sign and you beating them over the head, just caught up in mob mentality and that sort of thing. And that's why practices are in place to help us develop a certain leaning of the mind until we fully enter into it and we transform. Then we are qualified to be there because we'll be part of the solution or part of the restraint, even if that is required. But with the right understanding, with the right attitude, with the right aspiration, and with the capacity that comes when one has developed himself.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes. I see a hand, but I don't know how to answer it.
Hi, Marita, you can open your mic. You're on screen now. Yeah.
Thank you, thank you. This was so timely. I actually planted a tree today, and I realize that planting a tree demands preparation. The place has to be prepared, and the soil, and what tree to plant in that place. Does it can it stand the sun and everything? And when you said cultivate, it really hit home, because I've been using the word practice a lot. And it was a deep feeling of relief, actually, to cultivate. Understand? I mean, English is not my mother tongue.
No, I totally understand. And there is a difference really between cultivating and practicing. It's a very subtle difference, but it is a difference, because the idea, the attitude, the preparation, the aspiration, all of that goes in it, and the resultant reward of that is a little bit different. You own it; it becomes yours. So the Buddha's wisdom doesn't help me until it becomes my wisdom. Then it can help. Buddha's compassion doesn't help me, like he's a great guy and all that and want to be like him. But that doesn't help me until it actually becomes my compassion. So this cultivation is not mimicking and trying to be like Joe, but it's really bringing forth and nurturing what's actually in me, and making the changes in a gradual, actual action way, not in a mental way. So it's the actions are what count.
Exactly.
But it does take wisdom. It takes learning things sometimes in a certain order, because if you learn them in a different order, I had a bakery for the young at-risk kids that lived with me for a number of years. And we didn't know anything about baking bread. We were just trying to find a niche where something would happen, and gluten-free was just coming up on the horizon. And we jumped into gluten-free bakery, got grant money so they could have a little income. And that's what we were doing. But what we learned in then about baking bread is that there's a certain order that you mix the ingredients. And one time when we were learning, we didn't mix them in order. So we put the yeast in, but the yeast didn't rise because you had to first boil the water to 100 degrees, and you had to do something, and then you had to do something else. And we didn't follow the instructions. We just assembled all the ingredients and threw them in. And so the bread didn't rise. And then when we realized what happened, we went back and heated water, put the yeast in, and then it double yeasted, and it was all over the place, and we made a big mess. So sometimes it's just learning how things to carry them out in a certain order leads to a certain kind of progress. You can be doing all the right things or understand all the right things, but if one doesn't enlarge one's understanding built in an incremental way, sometimes we come away with the wrong conclusion, or we don't accomplish what we hoped we could accomplish.
Exactly. Thank you. I just wanted to share this. Thank you.
And-
Thank you.
Okay, I see 3 hands. I just don't know how to answer them.
So Laurence K, you would like to go now?
Greetings. Thank you for your teachings. The question about not being able to articulate the previous question really kicked up some stuff for me. So I wrote down, seems like it's a combination of feeling the intensity of one's own feelings, especially when it's like a social justice issue and you're just seems so clear in your own mind of the rightness and the compassion of your position. And then for me, I notice that frequently the level of my own suffering, because the intensity of my outrage and anger and lack of control, it's just like it's very hard for me to get to the depth of that. But what interferes with the skillfulness of the action is that the depth of that outrage, anger, and lack of control is huge.
Yes, and that's a very, very important observation, and actually it was a rude awakening for me when I realized that it's really me walking out my own outrage, and that's what caused me to step back from it and said, is there any difference in my outrage or their sense of outrage from their view? And how I really had to let go of my outrage. You don't have to necessarily let go of your view. You can have a view, you just can't be attached to your view. And but what you absolutely have to let go of is your outrage to be able to be part of the solution. And so a lot of what we think is our outrage concerning someone else is because of how it lands on us and the feelings that we have around it. And I'm not saying that we become stone cold and we have no feelings. It's just that we can have feelings, but we learn how to hold them and recognize them as feelings that arise, they abide, and they pass, but they don't have to determine the action that we take. And this takes a lot of practice. It takes a lot of discipline. It takes really seeing that as beneficial as opposed to getting my point across or doing what I think is right. And I think if we had more training along this line for activists who really have the heart, they have the right intention, they have the determination, they're willing to make the investment in some things that some people are not. I want somebody to do something about it, but I can't be the one who does it, But when we find people like that, I wish that there were more programs that would help them develop their inner core and resources around the Buddhist teachings, as opposed to and particularly the deeper teachings like this, as opposed to the more superficial or fundamental teachings. Fundamental teachings, you need them, but you have to go beyond fundamental if you want to be a part of great necessary change in the world. So we have to go beyond, mindfulness and bare awareness and those things. And we have to go into some deep principles of virtue and cultivation to be able to make the extraordinary contributions that are called for in our world today. I was going to say in this day and time, but in every day and time, we have like the same level. This is not the first civilization that has arisen. Then there's slaves all over the world right now. They weren't just like African American slaves. They're, no matter what you look at, you can see in some part of the world and in other times of civilization, they have had just as acute situations. But we always think ours is the worst time, as I'm sure they did. So yes, I agree. And so there are practices that we have to do to be able to be able not to cut off the feelings and not feel them, but to be able to feel them and yet not be moved by them, that our wisdom and our accomplishment rises to the level that it can be fully present with the pain and suffering, and yet our actions will be out of wisdom and compassion and not the pain and suffering. Thank you.
Okay, before we close, there is a question if it's possible to get a link or a download to the song. There's quite a lot of appreciation for the song.
Yeah, we could put it on our website. We haven't done the final, master editing of it, so it's in sort of its raw form, but we will post it to the website. What is that? Heartwoodrefuge.org. Thank you so much for inviting me into your homes and into your lives for this time. I thank Sangha Live for the platform and the great work that they are doing in the world. If you think this is a work that's worthy of support, we do ask you to go online and support them in whatever their format is for doing that. We'd like to offer up a dedication of merit for our time together today, of considering the hearts and the minds of others, for being willing to look at ourselves unabashedly and unashamedly, to be committed to cultivating in our own lives, not just sitting on the pillow, but as in every moment of the day, to consider our thoughts, our speech, and our action, because that's what keeps the wheel of karma rolling. May you be well and happy and peaceful, no harm come to you, no danger. May you always meet the inevitable difficulties of life in samsara.